everybody, to another episode of the Ideas Exchange presented by InXpress podcast. I am your host, Paul Castleberry. This podcast, it's all about business. We're talking about being entrepreneurs. We're diving into tech, maybe a little bit of advertising, marketing, whatever we can cram in between all those categories. We're trying to cover that here on this podcast. And my guest, Shiv and Sheyleen Lal. How are you? Welcome to the show.
We're great. Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Paul, for having us.
Absolutely. Honors on this side of the screen. They're coming to you live from Australia, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, we're based in Melbourne.
Melbourne. So they're down there. So we're happy to have them on. We're talking about their journey of becoming business owners. But before we get into that, give us a little background, a little bit of background on yourselves. Tell us who you are, the 411. What should the world know about you?
Yes, so we're originally from New Zealand, and we've been based in Melbourne for about the last 6 years. My background in terms of career, I've been in the logistics and warehousing space for about 12 years now. With my venture with InXpress, I'm about a year and a half in now. So that's been my business journey. It's been quite a huge learning curve, and so far I'm absolutely loving it.
Awesome.
And a little bit about me, Paul. So so I started, in terms of my background, I've got at least 9 years of experience in the human resources world. So I started as a recruitment consultant and then worked my way up now as an HR business partner. So that's my kind of background. And I decided to join Shiv in his venture earlier this year, actually.
Awesome. And so with your power,
a lot along the way.
Yeah, and so your powers combined, you make up the powerhouse that is your InXpress franchise and your business. So it's awesome to kind of get your take on what it's taken to get you to where you're at, and that's what we wanted to unpack here. Is just becoming that business owner, because as we were talking in our discovery call, I myself am guilty of this. I always look at entrepreneurs and small business owners and I think, oh, it's a walk in the park. Anybody can do it. But, when we were talking, you were saying not so much, not the case. So hopefully we can unpack that a little bit and dive into this. So I guess for starters, just start us off on your journey of diving into becoming your own boss, essentially. What's that been like?
Yeah, so I think for me, it's been years and years and years of it being in my mind. So I think I've been developing that mindset that, okay, I want to be a business owner. I want to own a business one day. I want to work on my own terms. I want to run my own schedule. So I'd probably say for ever since I was a teenager, I've always sort of had that in my mindset. And that's sort of where I've landed today. That's where it's got me. I think the journey when you actually start, you quickly learn that, okay, there's actually so much more that I need to learn. There's it's a whole new world out there compared to versus when you're working for someone else.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Paul, from kind of my perspective as well, and Shiv, Shiv's actually very, very accurate in terms of he's always had this entrepreneurial mindset, and I think coming in the picture and joining Shiv, I think one of the biggest challenge I had for me is I've never had that entrepreneurial mindset. And it's, being able to come into that journey and learning off him and shadowing him, but then also bringing my skill set has really gelled us very well together in how we're structuring the business at the moment.
Gotcha. Yeah. So it starts with the seed of wanting to do it, but then there's some back end things that maybe you didn't think of going into it, right? And that's one of the things that we kind of covered. And what were some of the things that were maybe stumbling blocks when you were first getting into it, and maybe some things you didn't foresee or think about?
I think one of the key things is trying to do everything yourself. So when you're first starting off, you don't have the financial capacity to hire a team straight away or build a team straight away. So that's one of the challenges, I'd say. Time management is another one. Just trying to juggle everything and wear the multiple hats, that can become really challenging as well. But I've found that just trying to actually build your structure, build your processes, that would really help. If you put in the time up front, it's going to help you later on down the road. And Shayleen's actually been helping me with a lot of that, purely because when you're first starting off, you just want to run with things, and new things happen, things pop up, and then you need to shift yourself into that. So Shayleen's really helped build the processes and the structure in our current business.
Awesome. Yeah, I think those are the kinds of things that I definitely don't think about, and I dare say maybe that's a lot of entrepreneurs going into this. That's like, yeah, I'm going to go do this, and oh, we got a mountain of paperwork I got to deal with on the back end of this. So would you say that's maybe where a lot of people make that mistake, is not doing that right away? And how do you balance putting focus on that versus focusing on building the business? Because I mean, there's got to be a fine balance there, I would assume. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I think the fine balance comes in, and look, each to its own, Paul. Everyone kind of deals with their own time management on its own terms. I think for us, the great thing was I did want to join Shiv eventually. It was just around when and how and the right moment. When Shiv first started, obviously, he had a business plan. He knew what he wanted from the business from a short-term and a long-term perspective. But it was just, as you dive deep into it and you start it off, it just becomes very overwhelming, and you're kind of doing everything at once. We used to come home from work, and we used to bounce back a lot of ideas, and I used to be very, very, I still am, I'm very passionate about the structure, the process, because I feel like you can only kind of work your way up once you have at least a process and a structure, a swim lane in terms of accountability within the business. If you don't have that, I feel like it's a little bit dismantled, and you just kind of, again, you go back to the old habits of just kind of trying to juggle everything at once. So yeah, just a lot of consultation between Shiv and I. And I think the great thing about Shiv and I is we've always been disciplined around, yes, I'm doing the ops side of things. I'm doing the structure and the processes. I'm doing consultation with, from a technology perspective, and bringing that forward to him. However, at the end of the day, there is an approval process, and we want to stick to that and abide by that. So we always want to make sure that whatever I have, whatever new ideas I have, I can't just, just be like, let's kick it off and this is what we're going to do. It's always about, hey, Shiv, what do you think? Are you okay for us to proceed? So, because at the end of the day, there will be financial impact to whatever decision we make. So it's always about that teamwork and getting approval from Shiv at the end of the day, because he is the business owner.
So communication's key there.
Yes.
and if I can just touch on that a little bit, just in regards to the decision-making process, it's quite important to know that any decision you make could impact another part of your business. So, if you're putting out particular marketing on LinkedIn, for example, obviously with us, we need to make sure we're within the guidelines, that we're following the rules and we're doing it accurately. But yeah, if let's say the wording's not in line with your brand image, that could impact you down the road as well.
One thing that you had mentioned that I picked up on was short-term versus long-term. For me, I hear that and I think to myself, wow, I'm starting my business. I'm going into kind of new territory. I can't fathom wrapping my head around long-term goals. So how do you find that balance as well? Creating those short-term goals to get the business up and running, but also looking ahead. What's your advice there?
Business planning,
Yeah.
Paul. So Shiv and I, what we've decided to do is every week we have our ongoing catch-ups on the business, on the operations, on the nitty-gritty nuances of the business, client management, building client relations, and so forth. So we have that on a regular basis, on a week by week. However, we've then built a business plan, and then we kind of touch base every 6 months to understand if we're hitting our targets. And yes, we're not perfect. There are times where we're not hitting our targets. So that's when we kind of step back and try to understand, why is this happening? Are we kind of, are we trying to overachieve, or putting targets that are probably not achievable so easily? So it's always about, lessons learned, how can we improve, looking at the nuances, and then kind of working our way up in terms of ensuring that we are hitting our long-term business plan targets from a financial standpoint as well. Because in terms of, building relationships with customers, retaining the customers at the same time is, at the end of the day, and will impact our financial business.
Gotcha. Yeah, that I can imagine that's a fine balance. It's a fine line to walk and make sure you're doing it right. What's been some of the I guess biggest hurdles that you've had to overcome during this journey so far?
Well, for me personally, I'm not from a sales background, so that's been a bit of a hurdle for me. It's been a huge learning curve. Obtaining clients is, that's probably one of your most crucial steps, and then things flow on from there. So I think that's been my biggest hurdle. But definitely doing better now than when I first started.
To follow up with that, how do you get over those hurdles? What'd you find was your key to success to break through that?
The great thing with us is we've got a good network of franchisees. So really just talking to people, bouncing ideas, talking to people who've already been there, done that. They've been in this space for obviously longer than I have. I think that's been really great, to just having people to talk to about, they're in the same industry as you.
I think just also to point out, Paul, is exactly what Shiv mentioned around, the sales aspect of it. That hurdle, I believe, still remains the same. So, again, the sales aspect of it, but it's pushing your boundaries and just going with it. At the end of the day, it's Shiv's business, it's his baby, it's the infant stages, and kind of building it up to strengthen it. So the challenges will still remain, and I think it's just kind of being positive. And I know there will be days where we're just like, oh my gosh, this is where's this going? But then the next year, like, yes, we made it, and we fulfilled our target, and we've achieved what we needed to.
Yeah.
So I think the small little achievements brings us a lot of happiness.
You take the small wins when you can get them.
When you actually do.
Exactly.
That's it. Yeah. And when that does happen, it's quite fulfilling, when you do have those small wins.
Yeah, absolutely. Can anybody do this? Can anybody go out there and start a business? Or what do you have to say to that? And what's some of your advice and takeaways and your learnings you've gotten so far?
Yeah, look, I believe anyone can. It's I'll bring it back to the mindset thing, but if you can build your mindset, if you can educate yourself, or be around peers who are quite well diverse in that space, I think you definitely can.
Yeah, I think just to add on to Shiv, Paul, I think yes, I agree. Anyone can do it as long as you've got the correct mindset. But I think before venturing out to any business, I think what's very important is to understand different aspects of it. So first would be, doing your research. Shiv did ample research, and he dived into different franchise models. He went through kind of, different aspects of it, reached out to different people. So it's really doing your research and understanding where your heart lies and which franchise model really resonates with you and what you want to do long term. So one. Two is, once you've kind of decided which venture you want to proceed with, it's also understanding the financial impact of it. So, kind of thinking about, when are you ready to fully commit from working from a 9-to-5 job, leaving that and having that financial capacity to actually do your own thing, looking after your own business. So understanding that. And then the third aspect is, what is your long-term goal? At the end of the day, I mean, for us, for example, we do want to build a team eventually. I don't think we're ready yet. We're hoping we will be soon, fingers crossed. But it's always about thinking ahead, and it's about future forecasting your business. And unfortunately, if you don't have that business plan in your mind, it will be a lot of roadblocks, a lot of challenges. You will get there. I'm not saying I'm an expert, and neither Shiv is, but that's just our personal experience. Is if you don't have a structure, and if you don't have that mindset, it will get challenging, and there will be a lot of hurdles along the way.
Well said. Well said. And believe it or not, we're coming up to the end of our time together. I like to leave this as an open mic at the end and just kind of let you share some final thoughts or how you want to close it out. Just, over to you for some final thoughts here.
Yeah, look, just to anyone who's thinking about starting a business or wanting to just dive into it, definitely try to find something that you're passionate about that will really help you excel. Make a plan, try to stick with it, have consistency, do your research up front. Like for me, hand on heart, it took me over 2 years before I decided to go with this business. And there was a couple of trial and errors along the way, and a lot of planning, budgeting, forecasts, things like that, that would really help. And I think now we're just hitting in the space of, automation and using technology to your advantage. There's a lot of things out there that can really help you build your business and help you scale it much quicker than it would have 10 years ago.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. Thank you both very much for your time. We got a powerhouse couple here. Keep your eye on them. I'm going to, from up here in the States, and see how successful they are. Kind of a random question I like to throw in here at the end of all these podcasts for the listeners who've been tuning in. Where do you see yourself 5 years from now?
Look, I'll definitely still be a business owner, but I'm hoping to have a bit more flexibility, tick off a few more goals, travel a little bit more. Yeah.
I've got the same goals, Paul. I think, but for me is I'm still passionate about HR. So I'd still like to do, probably in the next 5 years, maybe think about doing some consulting work. But then at the same time, gel with Shiv and his business and travel. Would love to travel and explore the world.
Where are you going to travel to? Where's your first destination?
We need to get to Canada. Got a lot of family members there, and we still have not visited, so we need to make a trip.
Put it on your list. You'll get there before you know it. Thank you again, both of you, so much for your time and your knowledge and your insight, and just keep doing wonderful things. And we'll catch up with you later on down the road.
Thank you, Paul.
Awesome.
Thanks for having us.
Great speaking with you. Thanks, Paul.
Likewise. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Ideas Exchange podcast presented by InXpress. If you enjoyed this episode and you want to show us some love and support, please share it out with others on social media or leave us a rating and review. If you want to know more about what InXpress is, visit InXpress.com to find out what they do and how they can help you and your business. That's InXpress.com. Thank you so much, and we will catch you in the next episode.